All right, Phil. We talked about it. Like Jerod Mayo looks like he's staying. Alex Van Pelt's probably gone. They might just revamp the whole coaching situation around him. What helps Jerod Mayo the most? If you're president of the organization and you're keeping Mayo, but you need to support him, what are you doing? What are you looking for?
So the way it's been described to me by people that are in these types of situations in the league is that to them, it looks like there are two options for the Patriots. One would be blow everybody out, Mayo included, and start fresh and give them a timeline, and whether it's Vrabel and McDaniels or Vrabel and Dayball or head coach X and one of those two guys as your offensive coordinator, that would be option one. Option two would be, and this is what I find interesting, because there's not a lot of people out there that say, well, just blow out the coordinator and start fresh with the coordinator. Option two for these people is keep all three primary coaches, head coach, offense, defensive coordinators, and then swap out a bunch of what look like really, I won't use the word that they have used, which has been negligent, and I will say
very racist.
people that are underperforming in those assistant coach roles, and blow those guys out, sub them in, get better talent, and hope that the entire operation works better next year. The reason why they would say don't fire Van Pelt is because, number one, he's apparently done a pretty good job at the rookie quarterback. Number two, looking at this job from afar with a staff that has not established itself and that could very well be on the hot seat firmly, like middle of next season, the argument that has been presented to me is there aren't a whole lot of really good offensive coordinators that are going to want this job.
Okay, but what if you said, all right, we put Jerod Mayo in this job too quickly. He doesn't have enough coaching experience. He doesn't know how to be the CEO of a bunch of people. What if we took a guy with head coaching experience who's had success, not Mike Vrabel, but like I use the example of Pederson, and he's going to get blown out by the Jaguars. So you bring in Pederson and you make him like an assistant head coach. Look, he doesn't care. He's not getting another head coaching job. You pay him a lot of money. He can help Jerod Mayo not only with game planning, but he knows how a team is run. He knows how to manage. So you bring someone like that in as like as an assistant coach, coordinator, advisory role almost. I think that's what helps him the most. That's like basically a mentor for Mayo to lean on. Any questions he has, he's like, yeah, I won a Super Bowl. He can lean on him in that kind of situation.
So somebody like Ben McAdoo, but someone who's had more success than Ben McAdoo.
Everyone brings Ben McAdoo up. Ben McAdoo didn't win a Super Bowl. When was the last time he was a head coach?
No, I get what you're saying.
Like a guy who's basically Pederson and McCarthy.
Okay, so the idea of bringing in a veteran that can help him kind of like...
Sure.
A guy who's not really a head coaching candidate and has nothing to prove, and bring him in who wants to make money and keep his foot in the league.
Okay. Can I answer your question with another question? Would you give that guy decision-making power in the organization?
As in the coordinator role, yes, but I would make him in a coordinator role. I would give him, but it would.
So he'd be offensive coordinator and he'd be assistant head coach.
He would be an offensive coordinator, but beyond that, he would get paid a lot of money, and beyond that, he would, if he wants the title of assistant head coach, who cares? He's probably not going to care. But you'd bring him in and you'd pay him like a guy who's going to be a consigliere. Is that the term?
Consigliere
to Jerod Mayo. That, if I was Jerod Mayo, that's what I'd want. I'd want a guy who has no chance of taking my job, who also has, I can ask, all right, man, I'm in over my head. Because there have been. And I'm not talking about even on the sidelines. I'm talking about being at the top of an organization. He doesn't know how to do it.
Can we just swap out Doug Pederson for Brian Daboll?
Sure. Yeah.
Okay.
I prefer Brian Daboll, but Brian Daboll, I think, has a chance of being a head coach again. But go ahead.
Yeah, that's probably fair.
But then that speaks to the other issue. It's like, okay, you want to bring in somebody who has no chance of taking the job. Brian Daboll would be a guy that would seemingly be the guy in waiting.
Right. Exactly. So I wouldn't bring in Daboll. I think Daboll, I almost am positive Daboll would get another coaching job if the Giants fire him. Not maybe this cycle, but he'd get one, and he's got connections with the Patriots, and that would be a problem. Like, Pederson's not becoming the coach of the Patriots.
But then is he helping in the way that you want him to help? Like, you're bringing in a failed head coach with a guy who had a franchise quarterback.
But he's not a failed head coach. He's a failed head coach for Jacksonville,
yes,
which has made him not an alluring candidate for a head coaching job. But he won a Super Bowl in Philadelphia.
Sure, he did flame out in Philadelphia, though. So the problem is,
but he's not in charge of your organization. He's perfect. He's had success, but he's not a danger to you. He's not going to usurp you. He has no motivation not to be an incredible help to you. I'll give you an example. It's like bringing in, if you were a team right now and Kirk Cousins is a distressed asset, this isn't going to happen because he makes too much money. But say you brought in Kirk Cousins and you say, look, Kirk Cousins had a lot of success in the NFL. I'm going to bring him in to mentor my quarterback. And even if Kirk Cousins is the starter at the beginning of the season, he's going to be the mentor for the kid that's ultimately going to take over. And when the kid's playing, the kid can lean on him and go and talk to him on the bench and talk to him off the field and find out how he prepared and how he manages things, how to lead a huddle, how to talk to other players, all that stuff.
I think I want to get Doug Pederson just like kind of out of the conversation.
Sure, fine.
Because I think he's sort of
fine. You don't
it.
like him.
Yeah,
fine.
yeah.
Okay.
And I don't. I think there are a lot of reasons not to. But
okay, very good.
I know what you're saying in terms of giving him that sort of experience, those in-game, real-time decisions that need to be made, and you need to be sharp on, and you need to have reps with in order to be sharp on.
Yes.
I understand that. My thing is, if you really feel like Jerod Mayo needs his hand held in that way, should you not just move on?
Right.
Well, you've committed to him, and you believe. Okay, I'll ask you this: do you believe Jerod Mayo could be a good head coach?
I do.
Okay. Do you believe that he's in over his head?
I think things were going really fast for him for the majority of this year, and probably still are. Yeah.
Okay, that's my point. Is that I know Jerod a little bit too, not anymore, but I did, and I think he could be a quality head coach, but not in the current way it is, and not with a JV offensive coordinator and a JV defensive coordinator. He needs a mind to tap. And he's got a rookie GM. He's got everything around him.
The question is, can you get a desirable person, not Doug Pederson, a desirable person to come in and be your offensive coordinator for an organization that looks like it's headed in the wrong direction with not a lot of talent, right? Because those people, if they are desirable, they generally speaking have options. And if they come to what they think is a sinking ship, that's not going to be a situation they want to join.
Who's the guy that was coach at Denver that's the big defensive coordinator? He's old. Vic
Fangio.
Fangio. Is Fangio more of an appealing name to you? Like, you bring in Fangio, and he's never going to take your head coaching job. He's been a head coach. He's you like him as a defensive coordinator.
Sure, yeah.
So he's old. He's not going to get your job. How about Fangio?
Sure. Yeah. I like that idea.
Okay, why would Fangio not take the job if you paid him more?
So the question to me would be, would Mayo want him because he's going to run a different defense, and Mayo's a defensive head coach?
A lot of good.
Do you have to let that? Do you have to let that go? If you're Mayo, maybe you do. Maybe ownership says, "Hey, I know you're tied to the Bill Belichick scheme, and this has become your scheme, and this is what you know. It's what DeMarcus Covington knows. It's why you hired him. But we got to let it go because we just can't continue on the way we're going right now.
Takes that off his plate.
And you need to focus on just being a head coach.
Yes.
Forget about the defense.
Yeah, it takes it off his plate. It's not as ideal as having but maybe then you can take a chance on a kid as your offensive coordinator that's a
young up and comer.
Young up and comer that's
sure.
not like, the number one, you're not going to get, the best offensive
maybe it's Nick Caley again. Maybe bring back Nick Caley. He's pass game coordinator for the Rams, and he's young and looking for his first offensive coordinator opportunity.
I'm stuck on all this stuff because whether it's Alex Van Pelt or Jerod Mayo, defensively, I think they should have been a lot better, and I think you can make changes there. But I don't know if any of it is disastrous enough to say, okay, identify this person and this person, the ones that need to go, because so much of it has been hamstrung by the personnel. And I think the overall philosophy of the team, and we've talked about this a lot, I think they should have been a lot more aggressive just in the way they run things on both sides of the ball from the jump this year. Maybe they got a false sense of of how good they were.
You have to build a culture.
Based on what they did against the Bengals in week 1. But after that, once things started slipping away, said, you know what, we got to go for broke a lot more. We got to do things differently philosophically with this team, especially offensively. And they didn't do it. And they don't have the personnel to pull off whatever it is they're trying to pull off now. But how much of that is really the fault of either Alex Van Pelt or Jerod Mayo?
It's a good
building
question.
a culture.
How disastrous are they as X's and O's guys?
Here's why you need to help Mayo, and then I'll let Phil talk. Is look at Dan Campbell. Dan Campbell came in and they lost. But he had coached before, was considered a buffoon, but they were smarter than that, and they knew he wasn't. And he said, I'm developing a culture. Jerod Mayo has not been a head coach before. He doesn't know how to do it. If you brought a guy, that's why I'm saying, if you brought a guy in who, there's so much more to it than just X's and O's and decisions on the sidelines. We're going to be this kind of team. We're going to have this identity. And if you bring somebody who talk, I know what I would want. And I'm talking to the guy and I'm like, how do I build this culture I want? All right, what do you want to have happen? I want this, and the third. All right, here's how I'm going to help you do it, and here's how you do it.
You could argue that's the primary role for the head coach.
Yes.
When it comes to scheme, coordinators run your scheme.
Right.
That's the job of the coordinators. The head coach is to manage expectations, is to communicate to ownership what the hell's going on out there on the field on a week-to-week basis, and to be the face of your franchise as you're developing your culture.
If the Crafts identify the problem as being how you just laid it out, Fred, that more so than with the schemes and all that, Jerod needs to bring someone in to help him identify the culture.
No,
of the
not
team.
identify, implement the culture.
Implementing
Tardy's question's a good one to me because I think ownership looks at this team and they do say that personnel is the primary issue.
It is,
and it's probably the secondary issue. Like that's the top of the list for them.
How bad is the coaching then?
And so would they be open to one of these two options that I just described, which is you end up just keeping both coordinators. And you're saying, hey, we're going to figure this out together. You're going to be given another shot. You're going to bring in more talent. Because
that will allow you to change the philosophy.
Now, fans would not be happy about that, and
if
we
I'm
know
Mayo, I'm not happy.
ownership
about that.
listens to this station and watches and reads everything, right? And so maybe part of that decision-making process is swayed by what they see and hear over the next month or so. But one thing that has stood out to me over the last 48 hours, talking to some Cardinals people, just this gets to your point about personnel and talent. There have been very few games where the Cardinals have been the more talented team. This is in the opinion of Cardinals people. Very few games over the last few years where they have gone to the field and felt like they're the more talented team. They very clearly felt like and were confident in that they were the more talented team on Sunday. And they looked at the scheme and, listen, I don't know, so I trust people like this who are in these jobs and know a lot more about it than I do. They look at the defensive scheme and say, the scheme's not bad. It's not a horrible scheme. The players suck. Yeah. They might have some of this. And I say, well, wait, they've got Duggars out there and Peppers is out there and Barmore is out there. The players aren't that bad. They have one good player, is what I was told, on the defensive side. And he plays cornerback. Those other guys may have been good players at other times. They're not good players right now.
Just watch them doing fundamentally things wrong. They're missing tackles. And on the offensive side, it's like you can have that, but you have guys dropping balls that are in their hands. You know, you don't have the players. You don't have the horses right now.
And so if that's how ownership feels and they can stick to their guns in that regard, then that might be a good thing for the coaches at the top of the ledger.
Does Wolf go if they feel that way?
I think they're going to give the front office more time to get it right, too.
So
I really do.
Everybody just gets to come back after this, Phil. Is that what you're saying? Everybody gets to come back?
Aside from, listen, in this option, this was option 2, I think, of the two options I presented.
Yeah.
You do have some assistants that are not going to be here. So, the offensive line, receivers, you might have some new people.
So
in
the
there.
personnel fire the GM after 1 year. You can't fire a GM
I know
after
you
one draft.
He's not good.
He got you Drake May, and he didn't do. What do you want him to do in free agency? You can't fire a GM after 1 year.
You drafted the
That's
third
insane.
quarterback with the third overall pick.
Yeah,
Turns out he might be the best guy,
and you
but
know
he
what?
was the third guy.
You know what? 90% of our audience didn't want him to do it. And so it wasn't just this slam dunk that they were going to take Drake May. That's revisionist BS. That's revisionist. There was this whole thing. Marvin Harrison's he's a generational talent. You start with look at how Kansas City does things, and you have to build a team. No. There was no unanimous clamoring for Drake May.
Oh, but that was an ownership directive. You have to take a quarterback there. Like, Wolf had no choice. He took the third
You know
quarterback
that?
and the third pick. That's what I believe.
But based on what?
Based on the fact that they were going to take a quarterback.
If
No,
they
no,
had
but
told,
they
if,
need- how is
if,
it-
if
how
the
do you
front
thi-
office had told ownership that this kid can't play, it's not worth it, then they wouldn't have taken him.
Yeah, I mean, how do you know that the Crabs? I mean, seriously, like, how do you know? Like, did someone tell you that that's what the Crabs did?
I think there's a commonly held belief that the Patriots and Bill Belichick, it was agreed upon that they would be taking Mac Jones because he was a quarterback. It was pretty obvious they needed to take a quarterback. I don't give Elliott Wolf all this credit for taking the third quarterback with the third overall.
I don't give
Mac
him a lot
Jones
of
was
credit either. But you
Mac
can't.
Jones was a Bill pick.
But if you oh, fair, good, that's
Oh,
good.
there we go.
But like
We've reported that
Yeah,
before.
you have
but, like,
reported that
but,
before.
Yeah,
But-
people in
but-
the room say the Crafts literally said nothing. Like when it came to this is what we need.
Yeah. So anyway, I just don't think, and I felt then this is it, and then we got to go. But Phil, do you think it's wise to fire a GM after one season?
No, I don't.
I just think it's ludicrous. Like it's just you start, then your organization's like in chaos. Then you're just going like I'm screwing up thing. You're not giving him a cycle, like a cycle to
Well,
to
firing
get this done.
firing a head coach after one season is 1 and 1A in terms of things that can undo an
Yes,
organization.
yeah, I agree. I don't think you fire a head coach after one season, but it's been done. But a GM, a guy that you put in charge of your organization, you gave him one round of free agency and one draft.
Bring in a consultant for him too.
I think
A
the people that
culture
would push
consultant
back
for
on that,
Elliott Wolf.
the people
You
that
were
would push
Mayo,
back,
you'd want it too. Go
the
ahead.
people that would push back on that would say, well, they have been around since 2021. But I think ownership would say, well, yeah, but this is really our first opportunity to truly evaluate
I mean,
who these guys are.
I don't think Belichick
because
said-
Bill's
yeah.
the one who's been making the pick.
I don't think Belichick said, "Hey, Elliot, like you're on the clock. Like let's go. Like who are you taking?" All right, thank you, Phil Perry. Have a wonderful. You look goyim. Have a wonderful Christmas.
Same to you. Appreciate it. Always great to be in here with you guys.
If you like that clip, and how could you not? Check out more videos from Toucher and Hardy here. Point slightly up and to the left. For more Patriots analysis and opinion, hit this playlist. Point slightly down and to the left. And for the latest from the Sports Hub, download at 985thesportshub.com.